Mrs. Eichholz?
Here.
Dr. Hooker?
Here.
Mrs. Johnston?
Here.
Mrs. Lewis?
Here.
Mrs. Singh?
Here.
Can I have a motion to adopt the agenda, please?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Roll call.
Mrs. Johnston?
Aye.
Mrs. Singh?
Aye.
Dr. Hooker?
Aye.
Mrs. Lewis?
Aye.
Mrs. Eichholz?
Aye. Can I have a motion to go into executive session in accordance with Ohio Revised Code to consider the appointment, employment, dismissal, discipline, promotion, demotion, or compensation of a public employee or official, matters required to keep confidential by federal laws, rules, or state statutes, and conference with an attorney concerning disputes involving the public body that are the subject of pending or imminent court action.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Roll call.
Mrs. Lewis?
Aye.
Dr. Hooker?
Aye.
Mrs. Johnston?
Aye.
Mrs. Singh?
Aye.
Mrs. Eichholz?
Aye.
Oh, that's not good.
We are not talking about that senior parking spot
Oh, boy.
tonight, right?
Oh, boy.
Okay.
Okay, we are out of executive session and into regular board meeting, and we are going to start with a safety and PPE presentation. Mr. Konecki, Mr. Davis?
Do we need?
Oh,
I
yeah.
don't see one on there,
We
but
haven't been doing the Pledge of Allegiance at these special meetings.
I don't put them on the agenda for special meetings, I just put them on the agenda for regular
Okay.
meetings.
Okay, that's fine.
sorry.
Okay, go right ahead.
Thank you, board members. Actually, tonight, we're going to start off with a presentation on our safety and PPE with the reopening plans for school. We wanted to make sure that we could give you a summary of what has been done to date with the planning and what things we put in place. So our Director of Operations, Mr. Nichols, is going to lead us through a presentation here, and I'll kind of move out of his way. Are you going to come up, Jim? I'll move out of his way, and then some of us may join in along the way, but turn it over to Jim.
Thank you, Mr. Konecki. So we're going to start by just some quick thank yous. What we're going to share with you tonight is truly a team effort. And I've only been on the job for 3 weeks, but I feel really fortunate that I get to work with a great team. There was already a lot in place when I arrived, and Mick Davis is really the person who had already put all those things together. He had gotten us some community partners, some of our families who had some expertise, and they started helping us access some vendors that really have been critical that we could get these things in. Everybody's looking for these materials right now as schools, and so I just appreciate what he's able to do. Many times we get emails and his business office turns it around the same day, because if you don't order by 3 o'clock, it won't be here in time. So it's just really been a great effort that we've all come together. We already know we have the best maintenance department anywhere. They are working tirelessly to get these things in place. Many of them need installation. So again, just so appreciative of all the people that are working together to make this happen. So what we'll share with you tonight are some things, some tools that we've been putting in place, as well as some of the safety features that we have. There is just nothing more important than creating a safe space for our students to come back to. And the first thing that we did and that you all adopted in our last meeting was a face covering policy. And I'll just remind everybody that this is we're requiring a covering for all K-12 staff and students. And we know that face shields cannot be a daily substitute for a face mask, but we do have those as well for all K-3 students, as well as all of our staff as an extra layer of protection. We will have extra masks on hand. We know that coming from the primary school, things can get lost and they can get dirty occasionally. And so we'll have extra supplies on hand to make sure that we're able to support all of our learners and our staff if they need to. We are encouraging our families, though, to bring their own face mask. You all know we're all finding what's most comfortable for us, and we've got some good guidelines on what a face mask needs to be. So we have that out there for everyone.
Jim,
Yes.
so you have shared that what's acceptable as a face mask with the parents?
Yes,
So like gaiters are not acceptable, things like that?
we put out the face mask policy, and within that it talks about how it has to cinch up against your face and what we want them to bring in.
Okay, just because gaiters have come at it with some science that they really don't protect, just like the bandanas don't.
Yeah.
So.
Yep.
Okay.
We have been doing some practicing. It was exciting to welcome our staff back on Tuesday, and so we have been flexing our muscle a little bit. We all know that the more you practice something, the better you get. So as staff has been coming in this week, they've been practicing daily health checks. We've been taking our temperature and making sure that we don't have any symptoms, doing lots of hand sanitizing and washing our hands. Of course, you'll see we have sanitizing stations all over the buildings, but there's no substitute for washing your hands, and so we're encouraging all those great habits. In addition to some of the health checks we're doing, we've been ordering, we've got N95 masks for our nurses, we have gowns for our intervention specialists and some of our educational aides who will need those to work with some of their students. So all of those materials are coming in currently. As you walk around the buildings, you may have seen them even this evening as you walked into the high school. We have these hand sanitizing stations all over our buildings so that students can easily, and staff can easily use these when they enter rooms, when they exit rooms. It's just so important that we make sure these are accessible anywhere you go in our spaces. And so, again, our maintenance department has been doing a great job making sure these are installed in all over our buildings. So one challenge we've got, and so I'll talk a little bit about some of the buildings specifically. You know, if you're at the primary school, and we're going to talk a little bit more about what that looks like, you're sitting in one seat all day long. I mean, you're going to get up, we're going to move you around, but nobody else will be sitting in that seat. Nobody else will be in your space. So there's a layer of comfort and safety that goes along with that. Same thing at the elementary. You will have a desk assigned to you. Even on Thursday, Friday, nobody else sits on that desk if you're a Monday, Tuesday student. But when we get to the middle school and high school, and I got to shout out and give kudos to the middle school and the high school, they've done a great job of creating a schedule that's going to allow students to remain in one space longer than they normally would. Of course, in those spaces, they would change classrooms after every bell. The teams there have done a great job of maximizing how much time they can spend in the space. That being said, they still have to move around the building at times. They're still going to have to change classrooms. So how do you clean those spaces in between? And so we'll have these hand sanitizing stations so that when a student leaves, they can use that to clean that space that they've been in. Student comes in, if they want to clean that space again, they will have the ability to do that. Our staff will have additional cleaning materials if they need. But again, it's a timing thing. There's only so many minutes between when you go from one space to the next. So these are going to really help us keep those spaces clean and be able to make those transitions when we have to.
Jim, just one
Yes.
question. Most of these cleansing wipes and their instructions for use, and I know you know this, but
Yeah.
I kind of want to say it loud, do require them to dry on their own.
Yeah.
You cannot dry them. So I really think it's wonderful that you're going to try to have the kid, as they leave the space, clean it,
Yeah.
and that way it has time to dry before the next student.
And I think you'll see with all these tools and devices, it's going to take some time for us to spend with students and really talk about what that looks like. You are taking care of the next person who's coming behind you. And it's something we've always talked about here at Indian Hill, is that we are a community, and we're going to have no better opportunity to take care of each other than we will in this situation. So we'll be spending a lot of time those opening weeks, and that's what the staff's been working on, is those kind of plans on how do we help our students maintain that safety throughout the day. So I know the picture's not great here, but we have ordered and we'll have HEPA filtration units in all of our classrooms. Those are coming in hopefully very soon, and they have a HEPA filter as well as a secondary filter in all of those, and they'll be in all the rooms, the classrooms across the district. And so we know that these systems that we are ordering are going to be able to turn the air over 4 to 5 times an hour, and that's really important. We work with a lot of experts to find the best opportunity to make sure that air is clean in all of our spaces. In addition to that, we've added filters. We've heightened what we're adding in our current HVAC systems to make sure that, again, that air is as clean as possible.
I challenge anybody to beat that. That's amazing. That's great. Thank you. That's as good as it gets. Thank you very much. That's amazing.
And so I'm sure, like you, we've all had to go to the grocery store, we've all had to go to a department store, or possibly a restaurant, and you get a vibe right when you walk in those places about whether they're taking this seriously or if they're not. And so we have done everything we can to make sure that there is great visual representation. When we think about our young learners and how they have typically entered the school and what we need them to do now, they need some visual reminders to help them. And so a couple of pictures here. The first picture you see on the left is on the entrance to all of our schools and around the building, on the walls, just reminding them, wear your mask, wash your hands, maintain a safe distance. Those reminders are really important. That second picture, you can actually see there's a string that goes there because they're putting it in as I'm taking the picture. But this is at the primary school, so they're making a turn. One thing we're really thinking about is traffic flow and how students move around the buildings. Can we create one-way traffic flows in some spaces where kids don't have to cross each other? When they do, we've got a center divider line, and the teachers will be able to help us maintain that social distancing, even if we do have to cross one another. And then we, again, on the far right, you'll see there's another circle dot. If you walk into any of our buildings next week, you're going to start to see those all over, just reminding everybody to social distance. And again, it also, not only are they important as the students walk around and read these, but just that idea of you walk in a space and you can tell that we are being very intentional about what we want students to do. And so now let's talk a little bit about some of the classrooms and some of the things that we're putting in place to help our students. The primary school was specifically a challenge because we don't have desks in the primary school. And at that level, you really want students to collaborate and work together and communicate. So those activity tables are really important elements for our program. But they're not very friendly for COVID. And so we had to really think about what could we do to create spaces where we don't lose the identity of a kindergarten, first, and second grade classroom, but we keep kids safe. And so what we were able to do through our partners is to order these barriers. And so these are currently on the tables at the primary school. They'll allow 4 students to sit there on each side. Now, when we're in Plan B, there could be fewer students there, but even in Plan A, we could have a maximum of 4 students there, and they have their own space. At the same time, I hope you can see that in that classroom, it still looks like a primary school classroom. And that's been really important to us, is to create spaces where students, again, feel safe, they feel welcome. So I really feel like we've hit the mark on this barrier. We'll also have barriers in the lunchrooms, on tables. Again, students need to be able to sit. You can't possibly put 1 student or 2 students per table and have kids eat lunch in the capacity we need to. So we've got the barriers coming for that. What you don't see there, in a lot of our classrooms, we have those kidney-shaped tables where the teacher sits in the middle and the kids sit around. We use those to teach reading and have small group work. We have special barriers that will be put in place for those kinds of tables as well at our buildings. So these physical barriers really allow us to have more students. Of course, students will still be wearing a mask when they're sitting in these spaces, but we are able to get them and use some of the current furniture we already have in place.
How do you clean those barriers?
So we have a couple of different things, and I'll talk specifically a little bit about cleaning materials in a minute. But Wednesday will be a good opportunity for us to actually clean those. So at the primary school, you'll have students coming on Monday, Tuesday. You have that Wednesday time that you'll be able to clean. Of course, we'll be doing cleaning every night, though, and teachers will be doing. So we'll be able to, we have different sprays we can use, and we also, of course, we'll have to be using some sort of Windex wipe as well to kind of make sure that there's no film left on some of from the cleaning materials we've got. It will be a job, but we're up for it.
I can just see all those little fingerprints.
Yes, you can, right? So the other thing that we know is we really wanted to enhance what we do with outdoor learning. And we are set in a beautiful area in all of our buildings. And so we have some outdoor spaces already. We've got some beautiful courtyards. And sometimes those could be underutilized, but we're going to maximize their usage this year. We know that being outside is one of the safest places we can be. And so we are working very hard to tap into some of those spaces we already have. But we also know that we could use some other outdoor spaces. And so this is an example, a picture here of the shade that you see up there. And then below them, in that specific one, is a turfed space. So kids can actually just sit there and they could be doing some different learning. You can put an entire class under these. It's very large, the space that they have here. And we're going to have 2 or 3 of these spaces at all of our schools. Now, some of them have already a concrete patio that they're going to be there, so we'll use other kind of seating. We won't necessarily need to turf those spaces. But the greatest thing about these are we're going to be able to use these long term. And that's the hard part of some of these materials we're using. They're either short term or they're disposable, but these are going to last. And we can even move them if we need to at a later time. But I'm really excited for our students to be able to get outside and be able to use some of our outdoor space that we already have.
Probably going to use the high school courtyard, which we've never
We
used.
are. Yes, yes. In fact, I'll tell you, Mr. Damadeo has been doing an excellent job of using it for staff this week and some of the activities that they've been doing. So yeah, we're going to absolutely be utilizing some of those spaces.
That was such a gorgeous space that never gets used because of the sun.
Right.
It's just like sad.
So probably not the most exciting part of the presentation, but I do think it's important to know that we've been doing a lot of research and work and thinking about how we're going to clean our spaces and how do you clean them safely. In some cases, we need to clean while students are in the buildings. And so one of the product we'll use primarily when students are here, is a product that gets what we call a 0 rating. And 0 usually sounds not great, but in this case it's good because it means that it is safe to touch. So like you said, we want it to dry, but if a student were to come in contact, it's not harmful to them, it's safe for the respiratory, and it's also non-flammable. Those things are the most important, and so that is what we will use while students are here in session. And then in the evening, we have other products we can use that, again, we can let them sit and have that dwell time they need, but they wouldn't be used while students are here. So that's really important that we make sure we have the right products to make sure we're cleaning, but it's also safe for our students. And kind of along those lines here, so I want to talk a little bit about transportation because cleaning the buses during the day is not an easy challenge. And so what we're going to do for our buses are, we've got, you can see here on the right, it looks kind of like a cordless drill, but we just talked about that product that is a 0 rating. That's what we will use during runs because, for example, they'll drop the high school and middle school students off, and then we've got to go pick up our elementary and primary school students. How do you clean a bus that quickly? This will help us. It's a very fine mist that comes out. It dries very quickly, a little bit quicker depending on the temperature, but we think that it will be completely dry before we pick up our next group of students. But it allows us to disinfect and clean that space very quickly, and then again, we can do those, obviously we'll be able to clean those in the evenings before we pick up students again. So that is the end of the products that or the different safety tools and devices we've got. But again, I feel really good that we've been able to put all these things in place, and everything we're sharing with you tonight is ready to go for school, or will be ready for school starting next Thursday. And we just can't be more excited to have students on campus, but we want to create the safest space we can, understanding that there's no completely risk-free environment, but we've got some great tools in place.
You've done an amazing job. Just a question, have we nailed down the transportation issues? How many kids are going to be on the bus? How are we transporting them? How many will be in a seat? I mean, we had parents, we were asking them, you know, are you going to bring your kid? Have we gotten that all nailed down yet?
We are set for routing. Our transportation supervisor, Diane Spurlock, has the students routed for the AB days so that we know we can get all the students here and we know who we're going to be picking up and who we're not going to be picking up. I believe that we are 2 to a seat at this point, and we will spread them out the best we can on the buses.
Okay. Thank you.
Thanks, Jim. We're going to continue and talking a little bit about safety here for a few more minutes. Thank you, Jim. As many of you know, board members and our parents and students are finding out as a part of our reopening, we've also had to plan for what we're doing with extracurricular activities and sports. And so this evening we will be issuing an update to parents and students. There was a new health order put out by the state of Ohio that we received last evening and that we have been pouring through today to make sure that our students can safely travel and compete in all fall sports, as well as some of our clubs and activities that will be commencing. So beginning tomorrow, some of our brave teams will be traveling and competing in the CHL. The CHL had a large meeting today and also shared guidelines that they'll be expecting. And I'd like to just make sure that everybody is aware that when we share these updates, they're very important for parents and visitors and guests to review. And we will have these things posted on our website, and it's going to take a lot of education and a lot of shared responsibility amongst our spectators so that we can be successful at all of our venues. Fall sports are not going to look the same. We are going to be limited to 15% venue capacity. We are not going to be able to do exchanging of money on site. A lot of the things that we are used to doing in the past for Friday night football are just not going to look the same, but the goal is to have the students be able to play. And we're going to keep our focus on that. Immediate family members and/or guardians, parents, caregivers will be able to see their children compete and play at home. They may or may not be able to travel to away events based on the venues at the opponent's sites. And that is site specific, and that is something that we have to honor around the league and with our opponents. And that's something that's going to be a large adjustment for many of our families. As you all know, we have a lot of participation in extracurricular activities on campus. We have people who have children involved in multiple activities, and their participation as spectators is going to be limited. I just think it's really important that people know two things. Spectators are going to be responsible for daily health checks. So we're really going to need everybody's help to make this a shared communal activity that happens all the time. We know that our staff and students will be doing it when they're coming to schools, but when visitors come on campus and they want to spectate events, there's an expectation that they have also done their own daily health check. And everybody's on the honor system with that, and it will help us to continue to play and compete and extend our school year, because we all know there's an inherent risk. There's another large consequence if our spectators cannot comply with all of the OHSAA and Ohio Department of Health guidelines that are being put in place. And that is that our teams on the field of competition can literally have to forfeit contests or games if we don't comply with rules. So we really need everybody to help us comply with all of the safety guidelines and protocols that are put in place. Our athletic department and our coaches have worked very hard with our student athletes, and our student athletes, to their credit, have really done a great job of modeling a lot of the safety that we're all expecting throughout the summer. We've been very healthy, and we've all been very well off, and we want that to continue. So we just need everybody's help as we move forward. Many of the things that Jim showed physically, people will see at our outdoor venues: hand sanitizer, hand washing stations, one-way traffic cues, visual signs, asking people to do two things specifically: wear a face covering that is required on campus for all events, and maintain 6 feet of social distancing wherever possible. And they should be used to, people should be used to seeing marked spaces where families or households who come to spectate events will be expected to sit together, because all of our venues are going to be set up based on defined fixed seats. So the expectation is when people come to a venue to see a game or a contest, they are seated. And if they come with a family or household, they are seated together and not intermingling. This is not going to be easy or normal or regular for everybody in a community that cares so much about each other. But what we need people who care to do is to really honor this new system so that the games can move forward. The same goes for marching band and their parents at home football events, our cheer team, and then of course we will manage away events the best that we can, but the district is going to reserve the right to cancel or remove our teams from a scheduled event if we do feel that there's a problem with the away venue or their safety protocols, or problems we see with community spread in those communities. We may reserve the right to cancel a part of a schedule still moving forward. But nonetheless, we're very excited for our student athletes and coaches that tomorrow we can begin traveling and competing. So I think that's what we wanted to cover tonight, and if you have any questions, we can take any questions before we move on.
I just want to say how much we appreciate how quickly you all turned this around. And using all the same approaches we normally, you talk to different consulting companies, and it was just, we know you were under pressure, and we all appreciate how seriously you took it and how quickly you did turn it around, and how effective I believe this will be for our students. So we do really appreciate it.
Thank you. I think we're good with that.
Okay, so we'll move on then to the 2021 school reopening plan dialogue. Is there anything that you need to share with us?
I would reiterate, we've had several questions since we all last gathered about how we are looking at our plans for reopening and what is the rationale for the data that we look at and study. And I would remind everybody that what we said when we met in the past is that we are aligning with the county health alert system as those 7 indicators of data, and we are watching that data weekly. We watched it again, yesterday and today, and the governor is making announcements every Thursday, and we are studying that in addition to what's going on campus with any of our own suspected cases or contact tracing, what's going on with our neighboring school districts and contiguous communities around us, and contiguous counties around Hamilton, and the intermingling we may see that could impact our school community. We're looking at all those things regularly. We're talking to our county health officials on regular calls. We're talking to our medical doctors who work and represent the county, and we're continuing to work with new consulting partners we're developing. We said before that we would be opening with our hybrid plan, which is our Plan B. Students would be on campus in either Team 1 or Team 2, 2 days a week, and then learning 5 days a week, although they may not be on campus physically 5 days a week. And that by September 10th, we will review that opening plan. And if we feel at that time a shift is necessary or required or an opportunity, we will then make a decision on a shift if we feel that we can. And we're going to stick to that, knowing that operationally and instructionally, we believe that we could make that shift and announce that shift and do it within a few school days. So that was the original thinking. I think that's what we stuck with. And again, I think some people would like it if we could say definitively that is going to happen, but we can't say that. What we can say is definitively we're going to review this before September 10th or on September 10th at the latest and decide whether a shift makes sense.
Board Member Cindy.
Yeah, I just want to emphasize that to all the community, we are going to have cases, okay? So this can't be a surprise to anyone. There's a couple of universities that had 30 cases out of 20,000 students and shut down. I mean, I don't know why they opened. We know there are going to be cases. There are cases in the community right now. We are going to monitor it carefully, and if we feel that we can't control those cases, they are increasing, and we feel there's a risk to the students, we will shut down. We'll go to virtual. I mean, that's just what we'll do. But we're not going to be reactionary. We're going to be smart. We're going to use our medical consultants that we have hired. We're going to talk to the county. We're going to do the right thing for the students. But we're not going to just knee-jerk respond to these things. So we want to protect our children, but we need to look and see if we have a few cases. We'll do exactly what the county health department's recommending. We will put that student out, and we will put anybody that potentially could have been exposed to that student out of school until we're sure what's going on. But it also brings up, and Mr. Konecki brought it up, we're going to be expecting every parent and every kid and every teacher to work with us, because the issue is this is different than any other school year we've ever had. We used to be like, oh, now come on, you got to have a note from a doctor if you're going to miss school and all this. That is gone, okay? If you think your child is sick, keep them home. I don't care what the symptom is. They get a little sore throat, maybe it's allergies, you're not sure, keep them home. You think they have a fever, even though one of these thermometers says they don't, you keep them home. If they've got a little cough, you're not sure, keep them home. Do not send a sick child to school. We're not going to penalize that child for missing school. If we have an individual attendance issue with this child that's not doing, we'll deal with that. But if we all work together, we can keep these schools open. But if somebody says, oh, well, I'd rather send my kid today, and I know he's got a little low-grade fever, you are potentially risking the entire shutdown of the school with that policy. You can't do that. So we need everybody to realize that don't just be looking for a fever, cough, and shortness of breath, which is the classic symptoms of COVID. You need to say, my child has just a little cough, keep them home. Keep them home until you're absolutely certain. If you're not sure, take them to a doctor, get them examined. I'm not saying every kid needs to be tested for COVID every time they've got a cough. They don't. But you need to be smart about it, keep them home. We've got virtual ways they can learn while they're at home, which we never had before. So the kid's not going to suffer from their education, although I like in-person learning. I can't overemphasize that this is a community effort. If everybody wears a mask, if everybody is responsible, we'll be able to keep these schools open with almost certainty. And if anybody starts thinking it's okay to have a party on Saturday night with only 20 of their friends, you're just taking a risk with the entire school district. Because that's all it will take to spread it really fast. So I just think we've got to all work together. I really am proud of the plan that's been developed. The team has worked very hard, and we're basing it all on the best science that's available. If new science comes available, we'll react to it.
Kirk, do you want to speak to the shared responsibility of monitoring each child daily?
Yeah, I think, thank you, Elizabeth. I think to Dr. Hooker's point, again, shared responsibility for daily health checks is something that's going to be very important. We're going to expect that of staff and students, and we're going to need parent and family help with that daily. We are going to be sharing information with parents in the coming week about extending the use of our current program, Pickup Patrol, that we will be asking our parents and students to complete daily health checks with, and we'll be sharing some educational information about that out with the community. We already have posted the COVID suspected cases flowchart and also some symptom graphics for people who have questions about those things. We'll continue that education. And again, this is a shared community responsibility that we really need everybody's help with so that we can take the long approach to staying open and staying in the plans that we all want to be in, which are students on campus as long as possible. Those daily health checks are really important that people honor them and try to help us with them, as well as to make everybody feel safe. And if we were to have a suspected case on our campus, to help us do contact tracing as efficiently as possible. That is the key to Dr. Hooker's point of when we would have a suspected case, being able to do contact tracing as efficiently as possible and getting help with that. And I would go back to the discussion about athletics just briefly to reiterate this. We may ask spectators who come on campus before, during, or after an event with athletics moving forward to help with school and or county health officials if we have to do contact tracing, and everybody needs to be aware of that. Again, we can't control all of that, but we are going to ask for everyone's help.
One thing that we may want to do, I go to things at Green Acres where they've had the symphony coming out. For everybody that buys a ticket, and all this is going to have to be electronic in advance, right, Kirk? They're going to have to buy tickets in advance?
Yeah, we'll be using our fan zone ticket purchase online.
So when we do that, we need to collect their phone number and their email. We have to have a name attached to every ticket. That will help the health department. If there's an outbreak, they can do contact tracing and a flash.
Great idea.
Anything else on the topic of reopening? And so we will move on to the bond and levy dialogue. And there's not so much a dialogue, it's just kind of an update. So we all know at this point that there was the unfortunate miscommunication with bond counsel, which resulted in the levy not being on the ballot in November. The board is committed to taking care of the needs of the district, the facilities, the students, the academics, the staff, and we will be moving forward with a work session as soon as that is reasonably possible, keeping in mind everything else that's going on right now, trying to get the kids back in school, which is the top priority, getting them safely in school. And so there will be a work session in the near future. We'll announce that as soon as we have a date. And the intention would be to work together to look towards the second half of the school year, the 2021 timeframe of potentially repositioning the levy and the bond, or the bond levy and the operating levy on the ballot at that time. I do want to clarify, Nick, I know that we had had this discussion about timing, that there's there's something going on with the valuation of the properties, which means we couldn't really take action until January anyway, correct?
I'm not sure how that works with the county auditors as far as putting the certification that they would need if we wanted to do it before the end of the calendar year. But each calendar year, that valuation will change slightly. So that would have an impact on how many mills each of those levies would be. So the earliest the board could take action really to get that on the ballot would be January in order to get that certification from the county auditors. And then we would go through the process of putting the necessity to vote on that on the February agenda potentially. And then it would be ready to go for the May election.
Okay, I think that's helpful for everyone to have a picture of the time frame. And that would be the earliest possible opportunity for us to move forward.
Correct.
Okay. Was there anything else along those lines? Okay. It is a special meeting, so we don't have other business or anything additional. Oh, have we missed something?
I actually forgot to ask a question when we were talking about the school reopening plan dialogue.
Yeah.
And we have out there when the students are going to be physically coming back to school. When are students going to be, that are taking in the Braves Academy, when do they start school?
Dr. Stewart, do you want to talk a little bit about Braves Virtual Academy?
Right, so,
Melissa, you want to come over so that it's microphone? I can move.
All right, so hopefully those parents and families who are involved with Braves Virtual Academy, if you haven't already received contact from Braves Virtual Academy teachers, it'll be happening really soon. We've already started to make contact and start talking about what you can expect from your school day and make sure that people know what products they need at home, and also scheduling some special events. The return to school for all students always feels special. There's something special about the fall. We want it to feel special for our students in Brave Virtual Academy as well. So we're planning some events for those students in a virtual way. So really, it's already started, to be honest with you, and we plan for instruction to start just like it's going to for all of our students in a face-to-face setting.
Thank you.
right,
I think for anybody who's paying attention to what Dr. Kim Gibbon and her staff are doing, and I think there was a little video shared on social media today as well with that staff, they have been doing an amazing job planning to welcome our students with Brave Virtual Academy, and she's been very open. If people need to ask questions or contact her or any of those teachers, they are really excited to get going, and I think you can see that if you see the video clip.
Thank you.
Great, so for everyone watching, parents and family, as we have been talking, it's just so important that we all each do our part and do, monitor your child's health, monitor your family's health. Please, if we're having these sporting events, please play by the rules as a spectator. And the more that we can do what, control what we can control and do what we're supposed to do, I think the better our success, and it would be wonderful for our district to be a role model of doing things right as a community and getting our children back in school safely and moving forward to getting them back to whatever normal is going to be as soon as possible.
And Nancy, I'd just like to say again a thank you. We don't get to do this very often, but we mentioned this the other day. The food operations volunteers who worked this summer served over 22,000 meals to our families. Our maintenance crew, who has been putting in hours upon hours of getting ready for the reopening of school. There's a lot of work that goes along behind the scenes. Our IHEPO teacher organization and the extra work that they have put in, this leadership team, which I'm so proud of, our staff and our students who have been on campus involved in activities. It really is a community effort, and that's what makes this place special. And I get to see that every day, and I know people want to practice and model safety, and they also want to be together. So we all have to remember, if we want those things, we just have to keep modeling the way.
Okay, if we have no further business, could I have a motion for adjournment?
So moved.
Is there a second?
second.
All in favor? Aye. Thank you, everyone.